Have you ever stopped to think about, like, how important it is to actually just express yourself? I mean, to truly have a voice.
Yeah, it's something we often take for granted, isn't it?
For sure. Well, today we're going to dive deep into this whole idea with this article. What happens when voices are silenced? The power of expression.
Ooh, that sounds
It
intense.
is.
Oh,
And it's not just about, venting or getting stuff off your chest. It goes way deeper than that.
right. Like, what really struck me about the article is how it shows expression as this, fundamental part of who we are.
Totally.
It talks about how every time we create something, whether it's writing or music or even just speaking our minds,
Yeah.
we're actually, in a way, defining ourselves and our place in the world.
It's like we're making sense of our own internal world and then figuring out how we fit into the bigger picture.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is that the article argues that this, freedom of expression isn't just good for us as individuals.
It's good for, like, society as a whole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's crucial for a healthy culture and a society that can actually progress and move forward.
So I guess what we're trying to do today is really break down why having a voice is so important.
And what the consequences are when those voices are silenced.
Right. So the article starts off by laying out why this whole thing even matters.
Right.
And it talks about how, like, on a personal level, being able to express yourself helps you cultivate your sense of self.
It's like when you create something, you're kind of putting your stamp on the world.
Yeah, you're putting yourself out there. And the article also talks about how being able to express yourself is, like, really tied to your emotional well-being.
Oh, for sure. Like, if you keep everything bottled up
It's
inside,
not good.
not good at all.
No, and then, if you zoom out and look at society as a whole, the article really emphasizes how important this free flow of expression is
Like, it's the lifeblood of any culture. It's how we exchange ideas.
and how we make progress.
Exactly. But when voices are silenced, well, it's like cutting off that flow at the source, isn't it?
Yeah, you're basically stopping innovation from happening. If people can't share their perspectives or challenge the status quo.
Then how can things ever change?
Exactly. To illustrate this, the article dives into some pretty powerful examples from history. Times when voices were actually silenced.
Right. Like, one of the first examples is the Soviet Union under Stalin's rule.
Ooh, that's a dark one.
Yeah, it really is. And it shows just how, systematic that silencing was. Artists, writers, intellectuals,
Anyone who, like, dared to think differently.
anyone who didn't toe the party line,
Yeah.
they were all targeted. And it wasn't just about shutting down individual opinions. It was about reshaping the entire culture to fit this, narrow ideology.
Wow, so it was like they were trying to control what people thought, not just what they said.
Exactly. And even more than that, the article argues that this, systematic silencing had a lasting impact on independent thought.
Like, even after the Soviet Union collapsed.
Right. It's like a scar on the intellectual landscape.
Wow. So the next example the article brings up is the U.S. Civil Rights Movement.
Right. A completely different context, but equally powerful.
Yeah, and here you have voices fighting for basic human rights, but constantly being shut down.
Through violence,
Yeah.
through intimidation. The article mentions people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X.
Yeah.
They faced huge risks just for speaking out against systemic racism.
So this is deeper than just individual prejudice, right? It's like,
It's woven into the fabric of society.
exactly. And the article makes a point of saying that trying to silence these voices actually ended up strengthening the movement.
Because it just highlighted the injustice even more.
So it kind of backfired in a way.
Big time. Then the article talks about religious persecution.
Like the Salem witch trials.
It's a chilling example of how fear and paranoia can be weaponized to silence people.
It's crazy how a story, even if it's completely false, can spread like wildfire.
Especially when people are already scared.
And the article points out how this fear-mongering can completely erode rational thought.
And lead to the persecution of innocent people.
It's like, history repeating itself.
Sadly, yeah.
So looking at all these historical examples, the article makes a really clear point
Yet silencing voices hinders progress.
and actually perpetuates injustices.
Exactly. But then the article shifts gears a little and focuses on the individual.
On, like, the psychological impact of being silenced.
Right. It's something that's not always talked about.
But it's really important. The article talks about how not being able to express yourself can lead to all sorts of problems. Trauma, anxiety, depression.
It creates this sense of powerlessness.
And it can really affect your self-worth. Like, if your voice isn't being heard, it can make you feel like you don't matter.
And what's even more fascinating is how the article delves into the idea of trauma as a direct consequence of being silenced. Think about it, those repeated experiences of being dismissed or invalidated.
It's like your reality is being denied.
And the article specifically mentions how marginalized communities often experience this collective trauma.
Yeah, when their voices are consistently ignored.
Right. It's not just an individual experience, it becomes a shared wound. And then there are the long-term consequences the article talks about,
Yeah.
like PTSD and anxiety disorders.
It can even manifest physically, right?
Yeah.
Psychosomatic symptoms.
Yeah. It's like your body is trying to express what your voice can't. So after looking at these kind of heavy psychological effects, the article takes a really interesting turn. It starts talking about technology
Oh, right.
and how it's
Yeah.
this kind of double-edged sword when it comes to freedom of expression.
In what way?
Well, on the one hand, technology, particularly social media, has democratized expression in a way that we've never seen before.
Right, like anyone with an internet connection can potentially reach a global audience.
Exactly. And this has been especially important for marginalized groups who haven't always had a platform.
The article gives examples like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
All these platforms have become tools for advocacy, for raising awareness about all sorts of issues.
Like social justice, climate change, all that stuff.
And it's really helped to connect people who share similar experiences and build communities around shared goals.
But as the article points out, there's a flip side to this, right? It's not all sunshine and roses.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
The article talks about things like the spread of misinformation, online harassment, and the formation of echo chambers.
Oh, yeah, echo chambers where you only hear opinions that already agree with your own.
Right, and this can really lead to polarization and a lack of understanding between different groups.
And the article also brings up this point about how algorithms can actually end up silencing certain voices.
Right. It's a really important point because we often think of algorithms as neutral.
Like they're just math, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the article argues that these algorithms can actually prioritize certain types of content based on engagement.
So even if it's unintentional, it can still end up favoring some voices over others.
Exactly. It's like a kind of digital gatekeeping.
That's a good way to put it.
So yeah, technology is this incredibly powerful tool. It can be used to amplify voices, but it can also be used to silence them.
It's a trade-off.
Definitely.
Okay.
And then the article kind of zooms back out again to look at the bigger picture.
At the societal level.
Right. And it makes the point that when voices are silenced, we all lose out.
Because we lose that diversity of thought.
Exactly. It stifles innovation, limits critical dialogue, and ultimately prevents us from solving problems together. The article even quotes a report from the World Economic Forum.
What do they say?
They linked the silencing of diverse voices with diminished creativity and problem solving.
That makes sense. If everyone's thinking the same way.
Then there are no new ideas.
Right. And then, of course, there's the whole issue of echo chambers, which we talked about earlier.
Right. The article cites data from the Pew Research Center showing how this lack of exposure to different perspectives can make societal divisions even worse.
It's like we're all living in our own little bubbles.
And those bubbles just keep getting more and more isolated. And the article also makes a really important point about how this lack of diverse voices can actually stall social progress.
It's like, think about all the important movements throughout history for civil rights, for gender equality.
All of them relied on amplifying voices that were previously silenced.
And the article has this great quote from Bell Hooks. Life-transforming ideas have always come to me through the voices of others.
It's so true, isn't it? Like, we need to be open to hearing from people who are different from us.
To challenge our own assumptions and help us grow.
Exactly. To illustrate this point about the power of collective expression, the article then goes on to highlight some really inspiring case studies.
Okay, like what?
Well, first it talks about the Arab Spring, which started in late 2010.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It was a really significant moment because people across the Arab world used social media to speak out against oppressive regimes.
Right, and it actually led to real political change in some countries.
It did. It wasn't always easy, and the outcomes varied, but it showed how powerful it can be when people find their voice and demand to be heard.
So powerful. What else does the article talk about?
Well, it also highlights the Black Lives Matter movement.
Which has really become a global phenomenon, hasn't it?
It really has. The article talks about how BLM used social media to spread its message and engage people all over the world.
And push for real change in the way we think about race and justice.
Exactly. And then the article brings up the women's rights movement, which obviously has a much longer history.
Yeah, but it's still so relevant today.
Absolutely. And the article points out how this movement has always been about women finding their voice and demanding equality.
And it's led to some really significant changes, both legally and in terms of social attitudes.
It has. And it's a reminder that progress takes time and persistence.
It's about consistently speaking up and demanding to be heard.
Exactly. And then the article moves on to talk about the role of art in all of this.
Okay, yeah, I think that's really important.
It is. Because art can provide a voice for those who are often silenced or marginalized.
Right, like the article talks about how literature can give voice to the disenfranchised.
And bring attention to injustices that might otherwise go unnoticed.
And music can be a powerful tool for bringing people together and creating a sense of solidarity.
And visual art can really challenge our perspectives and make us think about things in new ways.
So in the end, the article is really about finding ways to empower those silenced voices.
And create a more inclusive and equitable world where everyone has the chance to speak their truth.
And it offers some concrete suggestions for how we can actually do that.
Yeah, it talks about the importance of advocacy and raising awareness about these issues.
And education, like teaching people from a young age about the importance of free speech and critical thinking.
And creating spaces for open and honest dialogue where people can feel safe to share their perspectives, even if they're different from the norm.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
It's clear that the issue of silenced voices is incredibly complex.
and it's something that affects all of us in one way or another.
The article really drives home the point that freedom of expression is fragile, and we need to be vigilant in protecting it.
It's not just a nice to have, it's essential for a healthy and functioning society.
And it's something that requires effort from all of us.
Individuals, communities, institutions, we all have a role to play.
We need to challenge those structures that silence voices, whether they're conscious or unconscious,
And we need to be willing to listen to perspectives that are different from our own.
and amplify those voices that are often marginalized or ignored.
Because, as the article so beautifully puts it, the power of expression is not just a privilege,
It's a responsibility.
a responsibility that we all share to create a world where everyone feels heard and valued.
And that brings us to a final thought for you, the listener.
Okay.
Think about your own community, your own sphere of influence.
Yeah.
In what ways might you be, even unknowingly, contributing to the silencing of certain voices, or overlooking the voices that need to be heard? It's a question worth pondering.
It really is, because ultimately, creating a more just and equitable world starts with each one of us.
With our willingness to listen, to learn, and to amplify the voices that need to be heard.
So that's it for today's deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.